I think he'll change. He is committed of his own level of service, and that will remain true.
Privileged to bear during so much of my life and duty.
No one expected what happened next inside Windsor Castle. It was supposed to be a quiet family moment, but everything changed when Princess Anne walked in holding a sealed letter from King Charles. The room, already heavy with emotion, went still. And when Prince William heard the king's final request, he collapsed. Why did the king choose Anne as his messenger? What was in that letter that shook William to his core? Today, we're diving into the private royal meeting that the cameras didn't capture. What really happened that day and why this moment could change everything for the royal family. King Charles's unexpected final request. When Princess Anne opened the sealed letter from King Charles, no one in the room was prepared for what it contained. Expectations were clear. Everyone assumed the message would be focused on Prince William, the next in line to the throne. After all, that's how it's always been. But King Charles, even in his final moments, defied the script. The letter wasn't about William. It was about Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge. As Anne read the words aloud, the room fell into stunned silence. Senior royals who had seen decades of tradition unfold before them sat wide-eyed. Prince William himself was visibly shaken, not out of jealousy or confusion, but because he knew this moment would redefine everything. It was as if history was being rewritten, right there in the drawing room of Windsor Castle. Catherine had always been respected by the public, elegant, composed, and graceful under pressure. But this was different. This wasn't just admiration. King Charles' final message recognized her as essential to the future of the monarchy. Not just William's wife, not just the future queen consort, but a force in her own right. In the letter, Charles described Catherine as the true heart of the modern monarchy. He praised her quiet strength, her ability to connect with people, and her calm presence during the family's darkest times. He referred to her as the crown's compass, a phrase that reportedly brought Princess Anne to tears. The letter made it clear the monarchy's survival and evolution depended on her just as much as, if not more than, the heir himself. This message broke all assumptions. For centuries, succession planning had been male-centered, focused on bloodlines and birthright. King Charles's words marked a significant shift, an acknowledgement that stability in today's world demands more than titles. It needs trust, warmth, and someone the public sees as truly relatable. In his eyes, Catherine had earned that role. What made this moment even more powerful was that it wasn't sentimental. It was strategic. King Charles had watched Catherine handle everything, from intense media pressure to family scandals, with dignity. She had become the monarchy's most trusted figure in the eyes of the public, especially among the younger generation. By making Catherine the focus of his final message, Charles wasn't sidelining William. He was strengthening him. He was saying, "This is your partner, not just in marriage, but in monarchy. Follow her lead." It also hinted at a future monarchy that looks very different, less rigid, more emotionally intelligent, and centered on partnership rather than hierarchy. Charles's words didn't just honor Catherine, they charted a new course. No cameras captured the moment, no crowd saw the future king falter. But in the quiet sanctuary of Windsor Castle, Prince William's emotional breakdown was raw, real, and deeply human. This wasn't a dramatic outburst or a royal scandal. It was a silent storm, painfully personal, and hidden behind the weight of centuries-old expectations. It started with a breath. As Princess Anne finished reading King Charles's final request, William's breath caught in his throat. For a few moments, he didn't move. Then his shoulders slowly slumped forward, as if the entire weight of the British monarchy had suddenly pressed down on him. His hands clenched the edge of the polished mahogany table until his knuckles turned white. Tears welled up in his eyes, not the tears of mourning, but of something deeper. Pressure, identity, and confusion all colliding at once. This wasn't about being ignored. It was about facing a truth he hadn't prepared for. William had spent 41 years being shaped by tradition. Every step of his life, his schooling, his military training, his public service had been aimed at one role: the next king. He was taught to lead, to uphold the throne, and to carry the crown's legacy. But now, in his father's last message, the spotlight had subtly shifted. Not to him, but to Catherine. And while there was no bitterness, there was a quiet shattering of expectation. The story he had believed in, the one he had been told his entire life, was changing in real time. What happens when everything you've been preparing for suddenly looks different? That's what William faced in that room. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't resistance. It was the shock of realizing that tradition was giving way to transformation, and that his wife was being cast as the center of that change. The pressure wasn't just personal, it was institutional. The monarchy, now over 1,000 years old, was evolving faster than anyone imagined. And William, who thought he had time to grow into his role, now saw a future where he wasn't leading it alone, or even entirely in front. He was standing beside someone the world, and now his father, saw as the anchor. And then there was Catherine. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She didn't whisper a word, but she moved closer to William and placed a steady hand on his shoulder. It was all she needed to do. Her presence alone was enough. Sometimes the loudest form of support is silence. Catherine's composure didn't come from indifference. It came from strength. She had always been steady, but in that moment, her calm became her power. While the others in the room were swept up in emotion, she stood like a pillar, silently reminding William that he wasn't losing anything. He was sharing something bigger. The future of the crown may lie in a shared throne, not a solo reign. Queen Elizabeth's prophetic vision. As the royal family sat in stunned silence after hearing King Charles's final request, Princess Anne quietly reached for a second envelope. Unlike the official letter from the king, embossed, formal, sealed in red wax, this one was smaller, simpler. It bore the late Queen Elizabeth II's distinct handwriting and an unmistakable air of something deeply personal. It was a handwritten note, tucked away years before her passing in September 2022. In her elegant, steady script, Queen Elizabeth had written just one line: "She will be the pillar that holds it all together." That she wasn't Queen Camilla. It wasn't Princess Anne. It wasn't even the future monarch William. It was Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge. What did Queen Elizabeth see in Catherine that the rest of the world missed? Until now? This note wasn't an afterthought or a passing remark. It was dated years before anyone knew of King Charles's health decline, long before succession talks became urgent, long before Catherine's role began to shift into focus. It was a quiet prediction from a queen who had seen decades of monarchs come and go, a woman who deeply understood the workings of the crown and the people who would carry it forward. Queen Elizabeth's note was based not on sentiment, but on observation. She had watched Catherine navigate years of intense public scrutiny, family controversies, and ever-shifting royal expectations without ever cracking. Through tabloid storms, Meghan and Harry's departure, and family tensions, Catherine had remained unshaken, gracious, poised, and composed. Royal titles can be given, but true steadiness reveals itself in chaos. And Catherine had proven herself time and again. The Queen saw something many overlooked. She noticed Catherine's ability to soften difficult moments, to follow royal protocol while keeping a modern spirit alive. She watched her raise a young family, support William with quiet strength, and never let palace pressure overshadow her role as a wife and mother. These weren't just niceties. They were survival traits for a modern monarchy. And then came Princess Anne's moment. As the weight of both messages settled into the room, Anne looked directly at Catherine, not at William. And with the kind of conviction that only Anne could deliver, she said, "Catherine had been made for this role." There was no dramatic pause, no need for debate. Anne's words were simple but final. She had served alongside 3 generations of royals and knew what true leadership looked like. Catherine's strength wasn't manufactured or media-trained. It was real. Anne saw it in how she listened, how she acted, and how she never let the spotlight dim her purpose. In a family where every move is watched, authenticity becomes the rarest currency. And Catherine had it in abundance. With Anne's endorsement and Queen Elizabeth's prophetic note, the message was now undeniable. Catherine wasn't just a part of the monarchy, she was central to it. Not because of title, but because of trust. Long before she walked palace corridors or appeared on global magazine covers, Catherine Middleton lived a life that could be called by royal standards. Quietly ordinary. Raised in the green countryside of Berkshire, she grew up in a middle-class household grounded in warmth, work ethic, and dignity. Her parents, Michael and Carol Middleton, built their business from the ground up, teaching their children the value of effort over entitlement. Catherine's upbringing wasn't flashy or attention-seeking. It was built on foundations many would recognize: practical common sense, politeness, and respect for others regardless of status. These weren't just family values. They became the guiding compass for the future Duchess of Cambridge. And in many ways, it was this very normalcy that would become her greatest strength. Before she wore a tiara, Catherine wore trust earned, not gifted. And that made all the difference. During her years at Marlborough College, Catherine was never the loudest voice in the room or the center of every social circle. But those who knew her often described her as dependable, thoughtful, and quietly confident. She excelled in group work, not for the spotlight, but because she could be counted on to deliver with grace and calm. Even then, there was something unshakable about her. But her real turning point came at the University of St. Andrews. It wasn't just where she earned a degree in art history. It's where she met Prince William. And while the media loved to paint it as a fairy tale moment, the truth was far more grounded. They met as students, equals. Friends first, romantically involved later. There was no script, no grand plan, just a natural, evolving bond. The future of the monarchy didn't begin with a crown. It began with a cup of coffee between 2 classmates. And from there, something remarkable grew. Catherine never pretended to be someone she wasn't. Even under the glare of royal attention, she stayed true to herself. No scandals, no tabloid wars, no image games. Just consistency, something rare in royal circles, and deeply valued by those around her. Her relationship with William was allowed to develop without the rush. The couple dated for nearly a decade before marrying, a decision that gave both of them time to grow, adjust, and truly understand each other. It also gave Catherine time to understand what life inside the royal family would demand. But what's most striking about Catherine's journey isn't just how far she's come. It's how she hasn't lost herself along the way. In a world of roles and rituals, Catherine never stopped being Kate, and that's why people trust her. She stepped into the royal family not with noise, but with quiet resilience. She didn't seek to change the monarchy overnight. Instead, she slowly became the change through patience, integrity, and sheer reliability. Her rise wasn't meteoric, but earned, every step shaped by authenticity. The wedding as revelation of strength. On April 29, 2011, over 2.5 billion people around the world tuned in to watch the wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton. But what unfolded at Westminster Abbey was far more than a royal spectacle. It was a turning point, not just for the couple, but for the monarchy itself.
Lots of shouts from the crowd here.
After years of tabloid turmoil, public mistrust, and generational transition, this moment offered something rare: hope. Not just a wedding, but a quiet reintroduction of dignity and continuity for an ancient institution. It looked like a fairy tale, but it revealed something far more powerful: Catherine's unshakable strength. As Catherine stepped out of the car in front of Westminster Abbey, the world held its breath. Her Sarah Burton-designed gown became instantly iconic, but it wasn't just the dress that caught the world's eye. It was her composure. From the moment her feet touched the stone path to the altar, she was calm, collected, and centered. Her walk down the aisle wasn't hurried or hesitant. Each step was measured, her posture upright, her face serene. Catherine wasn't overwhelmed by the history pressing in on her from every side. She embodied it. For someone without aristocratic roots standing in front of royalty, world leaders, and billions of viewers, she displayed a quiet power that made it clear: she belonged. Inside the Abbey, her presence remained steady. While flashbulbs sparked and the world watched for any falter, she kept her gaze clear and focused. There was no stammering, no nervous glances, no signs of second-guessing. Catherine took on not just the role of bride, but the responsibility of future queen consort, with grace, but also with full awareness of what lay ahead. It wasn't just a kiss on the balcony. It was the start of a lifelong duty, and she already understood it. When she and William appeared on the Buckingham Palace balcony for that long-anticipated kiss, it felt like a modern fairy tale. But the moment also marked the beginning of something far more serious: work. From that day forward, Catherine's life would be scrutinized, her every move analyzed, and she was ready. The strength on display during the wedding wasn't spontaneous. It was the result of years of quiet preparation. Catherine had faced media pressure long before the wedding day, and instead of shrinking from it, she had learned how to manage it with poise. She never chased attention, yet never seemed rattled by it. Whether it was paparazzi hiding in bushes or invasive tabloid headlines, she handled it all with dignity. And from that day forward, her calm certainty became one of the crown's greatest strengths. After the grand wedding watched by billions, many expected a fairy tale continuation. But for Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, real life as a royal began immediately. And it wasn't all tiaras and garden parties. The transition from private citizen to full-time working royal came with intense pressure and constant public scrutiny. The dress came off, the cameras turned away, and the real work began. From the moment she became a royal, Catherine's every move was analyzed. What she wore, how she walked, what she said, and even how she looked at William were suddenly open to global interpretation. A simple smile could spark headlines. A slightly different outfit choice could start social media debates. Royal watchers studied her body language. Tabloids compared her to Princess Diana, often unfairly. Even grocery shopping became front-page news. But behind the glamour and flashbulbs, daily royal life was far from glamorous. Being royal isn't about fame, it's about stamina. Catherine quickly found herself in the thick of royal obligations. Ceremonial duties demanded long hours, often with little rest. Public events meant shaking hands with hundreds of strangers, maintaining perfect poise, and engaging in countless polite conversations, many of which blurred together by the end of the day. Official tours across continents involved jam-packed schedules, constant travel, and endless eyes on every gesture. Yet the most difficult moments often came when the cameras weren't around. Away from the spotlight, Catherine had to adjust to a life with little privacy and no real downtime. There were likely quiet moments of doubt, exhaustion, and pressure, especially as she balanced royal duties with raising a young family under the world's gaze. She didn't complain. She didn't crumble. She simply adapted. What makes Catherine's transition truly remarkable is how she handled all this without fanfare. There were no dramatic speeches, no controversial interviews, and no attempts to shake up the monarchy overnight. Instead, she led a quiet revolution, changing how royals connect with the public through her example. Catherine's influence grew not through bold declarations, but through calm consistency. Her charity work, especially in early childhood development and mental health, showed a deep understanding of long-term impact. She didn't chase headlines, but made real change, visiting hospitals, meeting parents, and lending her name and time to causes often overlooked. Her leadership style was subtle, but powerful. She didn't demand attention, but always received respect. Staff, fellow royals, and the public noticed her reliability, her thoughtful approach, and her deep sense of duty. Over time, it wasn't just that Catherine was fitting into the monarchy. It was that the monarchy was beginning to reshape itself around her strengths. She didn't just adjust to royal life, she refined it. In an era where public opinion about the monarchy fluctuates wildly, Catherine has become a symbol of stability, not by force, but by example, not by privilege, but by presence. As traditions evolve and roles shift, her steady hand and quiet grace have become a blueprint for what the modern royal family can be. The larger implications.
I think when we first started it started as a very small idea with Harry and I scratching our heads going, how can we do something that's going to help us in the future?
Catherine's rise through the royal family has done more than shape her personal legacy. It has helped reshape the entire structure of the monarchy. For centuries, royal leadership was defined by male heirs, titles, and a rigid sense of duty. But today things are changing. The crown is shifting, away from tradition for tradition's sake, and toward capability, presence, and partnership. Catherine represents that shift. She doesn't come from royalty. She wasn't born into aristocracy, and yet she has become one of the most respected figures in the royal family. Sometimes the strongest leaders are the ones who never asked to lead. And Catherine fits that perfectly. In the past, monarchy revolved around a central male figure, the king or the heir. Women were often seen as consorts, supporters, or symbols. But Catherine's journey has proven that strength, stability, and leadership can come from anyone, regardless of title or tradition. Her influence doesn't come from bloodline. It comes from behavior, from how she carries herself, not just where she stands. This is a big shift. It shows that the monarchy is starting to value partnership over hierarchy. William may be the future king, but Catherine is clearly more than a supportive wife. She is his partner in duty, in leadership, and in public trust. The crown may rest on one head, but its weight is shared, and Catherine carries it with grace. Catherine's role has also changed how people see the monarchy. She acts as a bridge, connecting royal traditions with modern values. She doesn't abandon the past, but she helps the monarchy speak to today's world. She shows that royalty can be respectful and relatable, formal and human. That balance is rare and vital, especially now when institutions everywhere are under pressure to stay relevant. Catherine brings a modern strength that isn't loud or demanding. It's calm, steady, and dependable. She's also become a stabilizing force within the royal family itself. With so many public dramas and personal tensions, Catherine has been the quiet constant. She doesn't react. She doesn't fuel conflict. She simply stays the course. And that consistency is what holds the family together. In a house built on tradition, she became the one people could count on. And that's how trust is built. Catherine doesn't lead through speeches or scandal. She leads by showing up, again and again, with poise and purpose. She commands respect, not through power, but through presence. People listen because she speaks with meaning, not volume. Her quiet leadership has already changed how the monarchy operates. She has shown that the future doesn't need to look exactly like the past. It just needs people who care enough to serve it well. That's why Catherine isn't just part of the royal family. She's becoming its foundation. As the next chapter unfolds, her role will only grow. Not because she seeks it, but because she's earned it, through dignity, through action, through simply being the steady hand the crown needs. Catherine's journey marks the quiet revolution reshaping the monarchy. Steady, graceful, and powerful. As both Queen Elizabeth and King Charles recognized, she's not just part of the royal family, she's its future. The crown's strength now lies in calm leadership, not ceremony. If you found this deep dive insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories behind the headlines. There's so much more to uncover. Stay with us as history continues to unfold.